My name is Seraphina, and I poured my soul into my family. Every rent payment, every hospital bill, every holiday feast, thinking love meant bleeding dry. But one brutal evening, I came home with my husband and daughter to find our lives dumped on the lawn like worthless debris. They sneered. We voted. You're erased. The family I carried on my back obliterated me as if I'd never mattered. But they didn't know I kept every bank statement, every wire, every venomous lie they spun. So, before we dive into this fire, tell me in the comments, what time is it where you are? Ever been betrayed by the ones you loved most? I read every word. The house was already alive when I parked along the street. From the pavement, I could see golden light pouring from the living room windows, shadows flitting back and forth. I paused, fingers lingering on the car door. In the back seat, Lila's head rested against her car seat, asleep from the drive, one hand still gripping the tiny plush unicorn she carried everywhere. I didn't want to wake her. I also didn't want to face them alone. I nudged her gently. "Hey, sweetie, we're here." She stirred, rubbing her eyes. "Are they baking cookies?" I forced a smile, though I knew the answer was likely no. Maybe. We stepped onto the lawn together. I balanced a tray of rosemary focaccia in one hand, adjusted my tote bag with the other. My husband Elias had offered to join, but I told him to rest. He'd been pulling overtime all month. I thought, foolishly, that Lila's presence might soften their edges. Corin, my mother, opened the door and immediately hissed, "You're late again, Seraphina, always dragging us down." Her eyes raked over Lila, venomous. "And you brought her? This isn't a daycare." Corin opened the door before we knocked. "Seraphina," she said, her tone just courteous enough. "You're a bit late." "I brought the focaccia you like," I replied. She didn't glance at the tray. Her gaze flicked to Lila, then past us to the road. Shoes off at the door. Inside, the scent of roasted chicken and citrus polish hung in the air. The dining table sparkled, 7 places set, with gleaming cutlery and napkins folded into crescents. I scanned the table twice. No seat for Lila, not even a cushion from the sofa. "I suppose she can share with me," I said, softly. I set the focaccia down and pulled back my chair, settling Lila on my lap. Valeria, my older sister, looked up from her tablet. "You're letting her eat off your plate. How quaint." She leaned toward Corinne, voice dripping malice. "Look at her, playing martyr. Pathetic." "I'll manage." Dinner unfolded as always. Forced smiles, the clatter of forks, talk of safe topics, traffic, temple events, the cost of milk. I sipped tea and tried to steady my breath. Lila reached for a piece of chicken with her small spoon, toppling a roll. No one offered a napkin. Valeria snorted. Clumsy, just like her mother. Can't even handle a spoon. Lila's lip trembled, and I squeezed her hand under the table. Halfway through, Valeria stood, holding a pale blue envelope. "Mum, a little something for my commission. Thought it might help." Corin took it with both hands, her face alight. "You're so generous. Always have been." I swallowed hard. Just 3 days ago, I'd transferred $2,000, 0 cents, to Corinne via my banking app. She'd called, frantic about a leaking roof and her water bill. She hadn't said thank you. My name was clear on the transaction, but they ignored it. Or chose to. I cleared my throat. "I sent you $2,000, 0 cents on Tuesday, Mom." "For the roof?" Corin's smile froze. Valeria laughed, sharp. "Oh, Seraphina, always fishing for praise. Let it go." I stayed silent. The talk shifted. Corin pointed at the focaccia. "Yours, Seraphina?" I nodded. "She still can't season bread properly, bless her," she said, loud enough for all to hear. Valeria's laugh was sharp. Even my father snickered. Lila looked up, confused. "But I like it." I squeezed her hand. "It's okay, love. I'll do better next time," I said, voice calm, smile fixed like a mask. Inside, something unraveled, bitter and slow. Later, over dessert, Valeria texted someone. As she passed me toward the kitchen, I glimpsed her screen. She's still trying so hard, isn't she? She caught me looking and smirked. Keep staring, Seraphina. Maybe you'll learn how to matter. That night, after tucking Lila into bed at home and scrubbing dishes mechanically, I sat at the kitchen table, the one I'd bought for our flat, paid for with side gigs and pinched wages. I stared at the leftover focaccia in its container. Still fine, still ignored. I whispered to the empty room, "They don't just ignore me, they want me gone." That night, staring at Lila's empty plate, I finally saw it. I wasn't just overlooked, I was erased. Sleep eluded me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lila on my lap with no plate of her own, Valeria's smug text and the confusion in my daughter's eyes when they mocked me. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through old texts from Corrine. "You're a burden," one read, sent months ago after I paid her phone bill. The words burned. Sunday evening brought a cool breeze and a clear dusk. Elias suggested a spontaneous getaway to clear our heads, he said. I agreed, mainly for Lila, even if it was just a budget inn near the city with a small park nearby. On the drive back, Lila sat in the back humming, clutching a crumpled sketch she'd made that morning. "I'm showing Nana," she grinned. She loved the sparkles. I smiled through the rearview mirror. "She'll adore it, darling. You worked hard." Elias squeezed my hand across the console, a silent gesture. He stayed quiet after family dinners like that, his way of navigating the tension. But as we pulled up, he muttered, "Maybe we should have stayed away. They don't deserve you." I didn't respond, but his words lingered. As we turned onto my parents' road, my stomach knotted. There, on the lawn, were our things. Duffels, trash bags bulging at the seams, a crate with my old tablet and cables, Lila's toy bin, half open, a stuffed giraffe peeking out like it wanted to flee. Lila squinted. "Mommy, is that our stuff?" I didn't reply. I parked slowly, stepped out, legs heavy. I approached the lawn, pulse pounding, and knocked twice. The door opened a crack, revealing Corrine's face, expression flat, neither angry nor kind, just final. "It's time you managed on your own, Seraphina," she said, as if reading a cue card. "You've leeched off us long enough," she added, voice cold. "We're done carrying you." "We did not," I said, stunned. Valeria appeared behind her, arms folded. "You've overstayed. It's not personal. We've voted." My voice broke. "You what?" "Majority rules," she went on. "You're a liability, Seraphina. Always have been," Valeria spat. "We're protecting our future. We need to focus on security." "Security?" I gave a hollow laugh. "You mean your ease?" Corin eased the door shut. "Don't make this difficult." My phone pinged. I pulled it out, hands trembling. A message from my cousin with a screenshot, a family chat I'd never seen. Everyone agrees. "She's out. Don't drag it out. She's had enough time. She's not contributing. It's pathetic, Valeria. I'll deal with it. Act normal around her." I stared until my vision blurred. Elias, now beside me, read over my shoulder. "They planned this?" he asked softly. "They didn't just plan it," I whispered. "They celebrated it." "No," I whispered. "They executed it." Behind us, Lila clutched her sketch, eyes wide. "Did I mess up?" I knelt, wiping my face. "No, sweetheart, not you." She glanced at the lawn. "Why won't they let us in?" I had no answer. We packed what we could into the car. The rest we'd retrieve later. I didn't cry until we reached a faded motel off the highway. The room reeked of citrus spray and something older, like damp wood beneath. Lila curled up beside me, drifting off. Elias sat in the corner, scrolling his phone, silent. "I should have seen this coming," he said suddenly. "Valeria's been poisoning them against you for years." I didn't look at him. "And you let her?" I opened the family chat, scrolled past every name that once called me kin, daughter. I read each message again. let them sear into me. Then I deleted it. Later that night, staring at my sleeping daughter in the motel bed, I knew I couldn't keep pretending. Sleep was scarce. Motel pillows felt too thin, the air too stale, the quiet too heavy. Lila slept beside me, her breathing soft, unaware of the fracture we'd endured. I traced her silhouette in the faint light seeping through the drapes. I thought I was doing this for her, but seeing our lives discarded on that lawn shifted something. I pulled out my journal, scribbling in the dark. They didn't just betray me. They erased me to rewrite their story. I won't let them. By morning, I wasn't decided, but I couldn't stay frozen. The room smelled of bleach and stale coffee. I slipped out of bed quietly, pulled on leggings and a hoodie. The front desk clerk mentioned a diner 3 blocks away. I texted my friend Nora, asking if Lila could rest at her place. She replied instantly, "Absolutely, take your time." At the diner, I took a window seat. The county courthouse stood across the road, its brick facade too familiar. I stirred sugar into my tea, hands unsteady. Elias arrived 15 minutes late, looking like he'd barely slept, hair tousled, jacket unzipped. "Hey," he said, avoiding my gaze as he sat. I didn't mince words. "Do you think they ever valued me?" He blinked, startled. "What? My family, your family, anyone, do you think they ever valued me?" He sighed, staring out the window. "They're traditional, Seraphina. They have standards. You know how your mom is." She didn't mean. "I'm not asking what they meant," I cut in. "I'm asking what you think." A pause stretched, filled by the clink of dishes behind the counter. He sipped his tea and said, "I don't think it's worth holding on to. Let it go, love. Let it go." "Let it go?" I snapped. "They threw our lives on the lawn, Elias. And you're still defending them?" As if it were a petty slight. As if the years of tutoring cousins, cooking for gatherings that mocked my dishes, sending money in secret while others took credit meant nothing. I tried again, softer. "Do you hear yourself? I was erased from my own family's chat. They voted me out like spoiled meat." He touched my hand. "I'm not picking sides. Maybe we just focus on us." "Focus on us?" I pulled back, voice low. "You've been silent while they carved me out. Where were you when Valeria called me a failure at Christmas?" His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. A memory flashed. Last solstice. Valeria had scoffed publicly when she learned I was teaching yoga online. "A influencer now? What's next, selling detox smoothies?" Corinne said nothing, just kept slicing ham. Elias had squeezed my knee under the table, a hollow gesture I hadn't wanted, meaningless, a patch on a crumbling wall. I stood. He blinked. "Where are you going?" I grabbed my coat. "To stop begging people to choose me." "You're making a mistake," he called after me. "They'll never take you back if you fight." Good. I don't want their table. Outside, the chill stung my face, but I didn't care. I crossed to the courthouse steps, not entering, not yet ready. I stood staring at those stone pillars, hands deep in my pockets. For years I'd waited for a call, a message, a hint of acknowledgement. But there, wind pulling at my coat, I realized something stark. I wasn't waiting for them. I was waiting for myself, waiting to stop justifying shrinking, accepting scraps. I turned back toward the motel. My phone buzzed. I ignored it. I knew the kind of message it'd be. Sleep was fitful the night before. I'd reread a message 100 times, my name misspelled under a grant I hadn't known was awarded. It wasn't the typo that hurt. It was the truth beneath. I wasn't just erased. I was replaced. Name by name, claim by claim. I found an older email from Valeria, sent after I paid for her car repair. "You're too soft, Seraphina. No one respects a doormat." The words felt like a slap, but they woke me. Days passed. I kept busy, mostly for Lila. We stayed at the motel then with my friend Celeste for a few nights. She offered her couch and kind glances, and I took both, ignoring the sympathy in her eyes. Then the invitation came. Valeria texted, "Ezra's school is holding a library nook dedication this Thursday. He'll perform." Thought Lila might enjoy. No warmth, just duty cloaked in courtesy. I texted back, "Will there be a seat for us this time?" Her reply was instant. "Don't make it about you. It's Ezra's day." I wasn't going, but when Lila overheard and grabbed my hand, eyes bright, I couldn't refuse. So, Thursday afternoon, I packed her coloring book and snacks into my bag, and we walked to the school hall. I brought a wrapped book for Ezra, The Secret Garden, one of Lila's favorites. We took seats in the back. The hall buzzed with proud parents, chatter echoing off polished floors and bright posters. I sat quietly, hands clammy. Valeria stood up front, poised in emerald green, smiling like she owned the space. Then it happened. The principal stepped to the microphone. "Before we start, we'd like to thank a generous donor who made our new library nook possible. A heartfelt thank you to Mrs. Valeria Monroe." Applause. Even Lila clapped, then looked at me, puzzled. "Mommy, wasn't that from your shop?" I didn't respond at first, just clapped slowly, hands burning. Valeria turned, locking eyes with me, and mouthed, "Know your place." Then I whispered, "Sometimes when you give too much, people forget who gave it." She frowned. "That's not fair." No, it wasn't. Valeria met my gaze, unflinching, her smile tight, daring me to disrupt. I didn't. I stayed for the event. Lila beamed when Ezra read 3 lines on stage. I smiled too, like a practiced extra in their script. After, Valeria approached, voice low. "You're embarrassing yourself, Seraphina. Stop trying to steal my moment." I met her gaze. "I'm not stealing, I'm reclaiming." After, I skipped the family huddle, heading straight outside to a bench under an oak by the parking lot. I watched Lila sketch a dragon in her notebook as the evening breeze fluttered the pages. Later, Mira called. We hadn't talked in weeks, but she had a knack for sensing cracks. "You sound drained," she said after I gave her the short version. "I am, but not the kind sleep fixes," she waited. "I donated from the family fund," I said. Didn't put my name on it, thinking the outcome would speak for itself. She took the credit. "She always does." Mira was silent, then said, "Seraphina, you've been waiting for them to be people they never promised to be. They're not just ignoring you," she added. "They're punishing you for existing." Her words hit hard. Not cruel, just true. "You're not invisible because they don't see you. You're invisible because you keep standing behind them." I stared at the darkening park beyond the motel, phone warm in my hand. I didn't cry, not because it didn't sting, but because I'd shed enough tears for those who didn't flinch. "You can stop chasing them," Mira added. "They're not going anywhere new." I whispered thanks and promised to call soon. I sat still long after, feeling something shift. Not anger, but space. A clearing in my chest. Not for vengeance, for breath. I didn't need their gratitude. I needed to stop giving mine to those who wouldn't remember. That night, back at the motel, I passed the vending machines, the front desk, and returned to our small room. Lila was curled up, arms sprawled like only kids sleep. I tucked her blanket and sat on the bed's edge. That's when I saw it. An envelope slid under the door, no name, just folded with a faint green ink smudge. Inside, 3 $50.00 bills. And a note that cut deep. "Hope this tides you over, no grudges. C." I stared at it, then scribbled on the back. "You kept my $10,000.00, but sent me $150.00. Keep your pity." I slid it into my bag, fuel for the fight. My chest tightened. I'd sent 10 times that to Corinne in March alone, for plumbing fixes, uncovered prescriptions, and, before that, car payments, groceries, back-to-school supplies for a nephew whose shoes I'd chosen. The insult wasn't the money, it was its smallness, its dismissal. By the time Elias stirred, I'd tucked the envelope into the drawer under a motel notepad. Some things didn't deserve display. That evening, Elias suggested dinner at my cousin Lila's. She always played neutral, he said. It might help mend things. Mend? I snapped. They threw us out, Elias. What's there to mend? He sighed. Just try for Lila. I didn't have the strength to say I'd never been the one to break them. Still, I agreed. For Lila. She wore a dress with tiny ladybug prints and held a drawing she'd made for her cousin Nia. Can I give it to her there? She asked from the back seat. Of course, love, I said, brushing lint off my skirt. I'd changed 4 times, settling on something neat but plain. Lila's house hummed with the usual crowd, overdressed for a Tuesday, wine flowing, someone cackling in the den. Aaliyah squeezed my hand as we entered, but then I saw the table, long, elegantly set, a name card at every seat. Nia's name, Lila's partner Kareen's, though she hadn't confirmed, but no Seraphina, no Elias, no chair for Lila. Someone, maybe Lila's fiancé, noticed us lingering and said, "We didn't expect you, but there's a folding chair in the garage if that works." I nodded, smiled, said, "No problem." My throat was parched. We took the folding chair, just one. Elias stood behind me. Lila sat on my lap, nibbling from my plate with quiet grace that broke my heart. Nia opened Lila's drawing, said a polite thanks, and returned to her tablet. The bread passed, wine poured. Someone said, "So lucky to have Valeria. She's always there when it counts." I bit my cheek until it bled. It wasn't fury. It was something softer, like fading. Corin raised her glass. "To family who show up." Her eyes flicked to me, cruel, unlike some. If you've ever felt like a whisper in someone else's spotlight, you know what that chair meant. Back at the motel, I sat in the bathroom, fan humming, knees to my chest. Elias leaned on the door frame. "You okay?" he asked, arms crossed. I stared at the floor. Maybe they're right. Maybe I was just a stand-in. He sighed. "You overthink this." "Overthink?" I stood, voice shaking. "They humiliated us, Elias, and you just watched." That was it. I overthought keeping peace, being reliable, showing up when they wished I wouldn't. I stood, dusted my knees, and faced the mirror. "Then maybe it's time I stopped showing up for places I was never truly welcome," I said, voice steady. By morning, filtered through thin motel curtains, I'd barely slept. My body was spent, but my mind raced down the same endless corridor. Questions without answers, memories I hadn't meant to dredge up. I rolled over, careful not to wake Lila. Elias had taken her to the motel lobby for pancakes and milk. I had maybe 40 minutes alone. I opened my laptop, not for anything pressing, but because browsing freelance gigs felt like grasping control. That's when I found it. A buried folder in a 2020 email thread. Subject, Draft Monroe Estate Review. My breath caught. I clicked. The will opened like a scar. The first draft listed me as primary beneficiary of Grandpa's cottage, a cozy 3-bedroom in Crestwood where I'd trimmed hedges every summer. 6 months later, a second version appeared, same letterhead, same attorney. My name was gone. Valerius had replaced it. I toggled between files, unblinking. That year was vivid. I'd paid for Grandpa's new wheelchair. He'd been so thankful. But soon after, Valeria started visiting more, always with cupcakes and her old law school friend who specialized in estates. A note was attached to the second draft, in Valeria's handwriting. "Seraphina doesn't deserve it. She's too weak to carry Grandpa's legacy." My hand shook, but not from sadness. Rage. I didn't cry. I forwarded the files to Lena, a former colleague turned paralegal. I saved them to a USB and uploaded them to the cloud. When they strip everything away, what's left is clarity. I had it now. Later, we were invited to a family brunch at my Aunt Daphne's. Elias urged us to go. "Just brunch," he said. "It might ease tensions." "Ease?" I laughed bitterly. "They want me gone, Elias. Why play their game?" He sighed. "For Leela. Show them you're stronger." Stepping into the backyard, I knew easing wasn't the goal. Valeria held court by the patio, dressed for a gala, not a casual meal. Her son, Nia, unwrapped a box with a sleek silver laptop inside. The table cheered. Leela tugged my sleeve. "That's like the one we got, Mommy," she whispered. I leaned closer, spotting the faint Amazon sticker from our order 3 months ago. The one Elias had signed for. I stood, crossed the yard, gently took the laptop from Nia and peeled off the sticker. "This is mine." Silence. Just wind rustling the pines above. Valeria blinked, her smile stiff. "Must have been delivered to us by error, long error," I said, placing the laptop back in its box. "You're pathetic," Valeria hissed, loud enough for all. "Stealing from a child to feel relevant." I didn't flinch. "I'm taking back what's mine. You should try it." I didn't shout or accuse. The quiet I left said enough. That evening, Leela and I ate nuggets in the motel while Elias scrolled his phone. I didn't push him. I didn't want another lecture on family complexity. Instead, I opened my laptop. Not for gigs, but a blank video editor. "Hi," I said to the camera, voice even. "If you're a mom who's carried burdens no one saw, this is for you. I gave everything to a family that erased me. Tonight, I'm done being their shadow." After uploading, I expected nothing. It was just a release, a way to move through the pain. But within hours, messages poured in. "I've carried that weight too. Thank you for speaking it. You're voicing us moms who hold it together quietly." Between wiping Lila's snack crumbs and folding motel laundry, I realized I hadn't just uploaded, I'd sparked something. The next morning, I went to a cafe by the community center to plan my second video. It had stormed earlier, leaving the air fresh, like a clean slate. Leela was with a friend. Elias had chores. The day felt open. Then I heard her. Valeria at a corner table back to the window. I don't think she saw me, but I saw her reflection, pristine, stirring milk into her latte. Her voice cut through. Of course I took her money. She's too weak to push back. Always has been. She laughed, cruel. "Once we sell the cottage, Seraphina's nothing but a bad memory." My hand was steady as I pulled out my phone and hit record. I didn't turn or react. I just captured 48 seconds of raw truth. That was enough. That evening, Elias and I attended a charity auction. I'd RSVP'd weeks ago, donated 4 boxes of dry goods. It was a modest event, all polished shoes and bright smiles. Or charcoal gray, simple, sharp. At the check-in, the volunteer looked sheepish. "Sorry, your name's not listed, but Valeria Monroe is a platinum donor. Maybe she can verify." My pulse didn't spike. I nodded and handed over the bags. "Let her have the stage," I said softly. "She doesn't deserve it," I muttered to Elias. "But she'll choke on it." I found better light. Outside, the lot shimmered from earlier rain. I leaned against the car, opened my phone and uploaded the audio. Notifications hit before we reached the motel. Comments, messages, people asking, "Is this true?" Others saying it was time she was exposed. Elias glanced over. "Not worried this'll escalate?" I met his gaze, calm. "It's already escalated. I'm just making sure the truth shines." "You're playing with fire," he warned. I smiled. "Good. Let it burn." For the first time in years, I didn't feel unseen or erased. I felt intentional. That night, Lila fell asleep clutching a can of pears from our donation, refusing to let go. I smiled, kissed her forehead, and opened my laptop. Tomorrow I'd record another video, not from spite, but because I was done being a murmur in their story. By dawn in Warren County, I knew what was coming. My inbox had turned into a war zone overnight. Not from allies, but strangers hurling claims I hadn't anticipated. Screenshots, posts, angry comments calling me selfish, spiteful, greedy, For legacy, Valeria had shared a doctored screenshot, an old text I'd sent in a moment of despair. Maybe I should just sue everyone. I hadn't meant it, but now it was twisted, reposted in the Warren Families Together Facebook group, and viral by noon. Valeria had added a caption, "My sister's always been unstable. Pray for her." The hypocrisy stung like acid. Her timing was calculated. My videos were gaining traction, especially the audio clip. She needed to strike first, loudest, paint me as the troubled sister, so I dressed deliberately. The same charcoal blouse from Grandpa's memorial, no jewelry, hair tied back. I didn't want pity. I wanted accuracy. The courthouse smelled of polish and stale air. Room 3B was small, but heavy with unspoken truths. I entered with Mara, my attorney, manila folder in hand. My hands didn't shake, my voice didn't waver. I'd survived the real wound. This was just documentation. Valeria sat, makeup flawless, blazer crisp, offering a taut smile. Corin was beside her, wearing a scarf I'd bought for her birthday years ago. Lila, our cousin, whispered from the row behind. When the judge opened the session, Mara started, "The 2020 will draft naming me primary beneficiary of Grandpa's cottage." Then the revised version, 6 months later, with my name gone. Mara outlined Valeria's frequent visits during Grandpa's final weeks, often with her estate lawyer friend. Next, the bank records, silent transfers, grocery payments, tuition fees, all from me. Then the audio. I watched Corinne as Valeria's voice echoed, "Of course I took her money. She's too weak to push back. We'll erase her completely." Valeria's voice continued on the tape. "No one will miss her." No one stirred. Even Corinne looked rattled. My turn came. From my bag, I pulled the envelope Corinne had slipped under my motel door, with $150, 0 cents, and a note. "Hope this tides you over. No grudges." I held it up. "This was their apology for stealing my life," I said, voice steady. "They thought $150, 0 cents could erase $10,000, 0 cents in sacrifices." I walked to her, calm, and tucked a blank check in. "If you ever want to repay what I gave," I said, voice clear for the room, "adjust for inflation." I turned to leave, but not before taking one last thing. The stool. The small wooden stool I'd fed Lila on, which they'd claimed as theirs. I had the receipt in my bag. I lifted it and walked out, carrying it like a memory that was mine alone. As I passed Valeria, she whispered, "You'll lose everything, Seraphina." I didn't stop. I already did. Now I'm taking it back. Justice isn't always loud. Walking out with the truth whole and untouched is louder than any scream. Sunlight streamed through the south-facing windows of my new flat as I unpacked the last box labeled Lila's Stories. I arranged her beloved books, tattered picture books, the one about the singing crane, and her worn copy of The Little Prince, on a shelf by her beanbag. For the first time in years, I wasn't settling into someone else's space. This was ours. I glanced at my YouTube dashboard, 92,137 subscribers. Under, a quiet thunder, proof that standing up for yourself resonates beyond years of silence. The phone rang. "Corinne," I let it go to voicemail. The transcript popped up. "We didn't realize. We thought you'd always be there." "You thought I'd stay your doormat," I muttered, deleting it. I read those words like a puzzle I'd cracked, not regret, but assumption, as if my presence was a given, like the mailbox or the guest room. Later, sorting papers, my fingers grazed something familiar in the drawer. The envelope from the motel floor, softer now, creased deeply. I opened it, empty. I stood there, not angry, not pained, just awake. That envelope was the last thing I gave them. Not the $150, 0 cents, not the years of deposits or late-night errands, but my silence, my readiness to swallow words in rooms that devoured them. I tucked it back. I needed the reminder. I wrote on it, "Never again." That evening, Lila and I walked to the nearby park. Spring was shaking off the last chill of autumn. She skipped ahead, pausing to prod at clover patches. Then, as kids do, she asked something vast like it was small. "Will they ever say sorry?" I didn't answer right away. I looked at the pink sky through the trees, the same sky over the house we left, the courthouse, every room where my voice was diminished. "Maybe," I said, "but we're not waiting for it, are we?" Lila nodded, as if it was obvious, and ran to the slide. I sat on a bench, letting the calm settle. Back home, after her bedtime routine and another reading of The Magic Fish, I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and outlined my next series for my channel. I called it the Rise series, Bold Steps for Unseen Women. I typed slowly, deliberately, then saved it. Across from me, the stool I'd taken, our stool, where I'd fed Lila when she was all smiles and babbles, stood firm. It no longer pleaded for a place at their table. It had one now, a true one. The will sat in my inbox, unopened for days. I didn't need to read it again. I hadn't inherited a cottage, a name, or a title. I'd inherited myself. I whispered to the empty room. They tried to erase me. I wrote my own story. Sometimes justice isn't what you reclaim. It's what you refuse to carry any longer.